Welcome, Wise Chat. It's Wednesday, June 19th. Thank you for joining us for Wisecrack Live. I know the thumbnail's a bit volatile, but we'll be talking a lot about it today, so don't worry, we know what we're doing. See you soon. Michael will be with us in just a moment. Go ahead and like the stream while you get cozy. Hey Sean, hey Malloy. Good morning, Daniel. Welcome, Julia and Dare Johnson. It's nice to see those lovely green names. Ghost Girl 666 and Melody and Wes and Callie and Vinny and John and Natchez. Yes, happy Juneteenth. Hey, Uncivilized Games and Bothi and Rosal. Hey, hypocritical nihilist. Glad you could join us. Havoc, I know the feel. I really need to get my car re-registered, and I have a few other just core life errands I've been needing to do on a day where I don't have work.
What's up, everyone? We're live. We're Wisecrack Live. We're with you. We're here with you. We need you. We want you. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. As always, it's Wednesday. It's June 19th. It is Juneteenth. So, we're stoked on that holiday. Truly, shout out to everyone who's celebrating. And definitely shout out to people for whom this means something a lot more personal and significant than it might for myself. I didn't mean that to downplay it. I just mean to say, I don't want to, it's not really I'm not trying to prioritize my subject position in this holiday. It's not what I'm trying to do. We do, today is like a day off work, but we still had to stream. But if you're off and you're celebrating, we appreciate that. And I don't know. But I don't know. It's an exciting one. So we have a lot to talk about today. We have an incendiary thumbnail, but don't worry, guys. Bernie Sanders is not taking a right-wing turn. But we have a series of, I feel like, incendiary thumbs today that we're going to be pivoting through. So get ready for some anger and heat. I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at a little bit, and a lot of people have already watched this, reacted to it, whatever. So hopefully we won't overdo it. But we're going to watch some of the Brianna Wu interview on the show. It sucks to say this name out. Trigonometry. Why is it that every podcaster show that's like, we used to be comedians, but then they canceled us and said we couldn't be funny. So now we have a show where we just talk about politics and why it's actually liberal to say that trans people shouldn't exist. That's honestly the tone of that podcast. If you've never seen it, good for you. We're all going to see it a little bit today. It'll be fun to do it together. And, whether we like it or not, Brianna Wu is someone who's both made herself into quite a thing recently, but who also has done this like performative leaving of the left thing, which I think is interesting to talk about as a phenomenon. There's a sense in which like it feels like someone who didn't get invited to a party and then who didn't go to that party writing a long post about why they had to leave the party they weren't invited to. You know what I mean? Like kind of that sort of thing. Or like someone breaking up with you and then you being like, I did not know we were dating. That sort of energy. And then a thing, this came up pretty last minute that we got to talk about. My old buddy, my old pal, Mr. Dr. Jordan Peterson, PhD, the meat man himself. He had a quote-unquote Marx scholar on, and by that I mean someone who has no formal training in Marxism, but is a professor at a conservative evangelical college and wrote a book on Marx and why Marx is Satanist. Guys, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. We're going to watch that, and we're actually going to do some reading today. So for those of you that like when we dig in to, text, doing some textual analysis, being in student mode, we got some of that action on deck for you today. So that'll be fun. That'll be a fun time. I'm excited to check that out together. Just a reminder that every Wisecrack Live, is brought to you in part by our friends over at Yes Please Coffee. Do you like coffee? Then say yes, please to Yes Please Coffee. They don't give me ad copy to read. We talked about this before. It's a small independent coffee roaster based in Los Angeles. I reached out to them because I think their coffee is so friggin' delicious. They don't pay us anything. If you end up getting some of this coffee, we get a little kickback. But that's it. You do get 20% off. Today, I'm drinking the Magic Dance. In case you don't believe me. I mean, listen, anything could be in this cup. It's like on late night shows. Oh, no, you can kind of see it. See, that's coffee. It's coffee, or I blended poop and water. But more likely that it's coffee. No dried spiders in here whatsoever. But there's a link in the description. Check it out. We're truly big fans.
I
and
shared
if you like
it in
coffee
chat as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like if you like coffee anyways and you want good coffee, give it a try. It helps the show out. And, I proudly endorse it. I'll tell you what I don't proudly endorse, guys. I had to do, this is a big one. I did my final, hopefully ever, BetterHelp ad read yesterday for a video we filmed. And because it's the last one, and I'm curious to see what you guys think, I went as low affect as possible. I went incredibly low affect. So hopefully it comes through. We filmed a video yesterday too that's sort of on the Trump trial, but not. It's basically about how with all the Trump stuff, we're like, oh, a president broke the law. This is crazy. But what this video presupposes is maybe presidents in general are operating in a space of power that's grounded in a fundamental illegality and state of exception. Maybe. One part of the video looks at all the ways the different presidents have broken the law over time, and another gets into the philosophy of Giorgio Agamben, kind of informed by Carl Schmitt, looking at how maybe it's all a little BS, So there we go. We'll look at a couple comments, and we're just going to start diving in today. These are from our Monday stream. Our Monday stream was on the best movie dads of all time. If you like movies, if you like dads, if you've seen a movie, if you have a dad, if you haven't seen a movie, if you're not a dad, I think you'd still might find some value in it. Someone said, a holiday, Jerry said, do I have narcolepsy, or did they really not mention the Goofy movie in this movie dad stream? We did not. Should have been there. Holiday, Jerry. We could only get so many things in, Without a 315 says, Michael had to end the stream by making me cry. Thanks for carrying the Mondays, but give me a case of the blues. I felt really bad about this. I I said some stuff at the end of the stream about how some of us don't have our dads anymore or parents, but that's okay, and we can acknowledge that and know that sometimes there's holidays. Sorry guys, I'm moving my camera slightly, that are sad. We can find joy in them. So shout out to everyone in the Dead Dad Gang, DDG. DDG has also meant something else historically on Wisecrack Live. Shout out to anyone who's been around long enough to know the lore. And this comment is from our video on Google search. Shout out again to World Star Hip Hop for sharing our Google search video and getting us like a lot of extra views, which really helped.
This is actually from the same stream video, but it's just
Oh.
commenting on us talking about the Google search stuff.
So it says, my most frustrating recent Google search was, what is the oldest running brickyard in the US? I worked in a brickyard where we made bricks. It's been around since 1870-ish, and it kept showing me history of brick-making historical sites and brickyards in Europe. I specified US and tried different iterations of currently open, running, functional, got everything between. Every link ignored one of my major stipulations. Yeah, man. You know what I mean? Let's see. All right, cool. Wait, I saw you shared a Twitter thing. Should I look it up now?
Do we want to look at Noam Chomsky tweets?
Oh, he's alive, right?
Yes,
he's still alive?
He is alive.
Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. Maybe we'll talk about some Chomsky in a few. This is the most important thing. Chomsky's not dead. Okay? Chomsky is not dead. I'm going to say it again. Chomsky is not dead. Let's maybe look at one thing. And we'll jump around and get to it. We're going to get to a lot of stuff today. We have a ton of stuff going on. I want to pull up right now, Henry, as our sort of way into the Wu interview, the Wu interview. Let's look at the Krassenstein tweet real quick. Because I think it's like just so dumb, guys. But this helps us get inside a certain type of weird liberal brain thing. Ed Krassenstein, remember how you guys probably remember these boys? There's these little boys, Ed, and there's the other one, and they're like the Winklevoss twins, but not like powerful. And their whole thing is they like reply. They got famous for replying to Trump tweets and being like, "Not on my watch, sir," and stuff like that. And we've talked a lot about the odd structure and function of the online intellect, of internet brain, of internet debate culture, and the way in which, and we all have to fight against this, right? There's a type of discourse that's taken over digital spaces, which is really dumb, but it postures or acts as if it's interesting or saying something smart. In this tweet, Ed Krassenstein says, if you could misgender someone to prevent a nuclear apocalypse, should you misgender them? Answer with a concise yes or no answer. First of all, anyone who's like, yes or no, you just got to say yes or no. Don't engage, guys. Never engage with that. But also the idea that you're posing, or that this gentleman thinks he's posing an interesting ethical question is ridiculous for a number of reasons. One, it's trying to bait someone into saying that sometimes it's good to misgender people. Or it's basically trying to like compare nuclear apocalypse to, gendered pronouns, implying that the use of preferred pronouns isn't really that important in light of X, Y, or Z, which is silly. It's trying to get you to say that, like, actually, this isn't that important. And of course, it's trying to act as if you wouldn't misgender someone, you just want everyone to die. Is that what you want? Very stupid. Makes me think of, the trolley problem. And in particular, there's a famous anecdote, and there's not a clip of this. So at this point, maybe it's apocryphal, but Alain Badiou, a French philosopher, was giving a talk about his book Ethics, an essay on the problem of evil or something like that. You should all read that book. It's really good. And it's very accessible as well. And like the stream if you haven't, please. It helps us, so like the stream. And after this talk, someone brought up some question that was like a trolley problem type thing. If you don't know what the trolley problem is, it's like a hypothetical ethical thing. It's like there's a bunch of people tied to a train track one way or something. Or no, it's like there's one guy and you're going to run over the guy. But if you don't run over the guy, you're going to kill everyone on the train. What do you do? And this is kind of like one of those scenarios. And Alain Badiou is just, Alain Badiou, one of the smartest philosophers in the entire world, is like, this is stupid. And this is stupid because it's not real. Ethics is about thinking particular situations, and ethics is always operating from the logic of a particular situation, navigating that situation with an adherence to a certain set of ethical principles. It's not just little mental parlor games that are bullshit. And this is bullshit because this is never going to happen. You know what I mean? This wouldn't even be in like a bad superhero movie as a scenario. So it's like, what is the point of even thinking this?
Yeah, could you imagine the structures and conditions of reality were arranged such to where this event actually happens, and how far removed from our actual reality it is to where the answer here just it doesn't apply in our context. In no real world context would like this scenario occur.
No.
Uh and it's just baiting you into saying, "Oh, so you would misgender." Some of my favorite replies are the ones where like, "Well, would you suck someone off if this were the scenario?" Like what? Like you can
Yeah.
replace the question, and it shows you the frailty of the argument.
It's so dumb. The funniest thing, at least the stats I'm looking at right now, 10 million views and 572 likes. Beautiful ratio. Beautiful ratio. And the reason I bring this up, and maybe now is a good time to switch to one of the Woo thumbs if you're cool with that.
Sure.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is someone who I do think of as in the wheelhouse of our friend Brianna Wu, someone who I knew until recently only in relation to Gamergate. And, in that instance, I think that I didn't have any problem with Brianna Wu. It seems like she legitimately experienced abuse from bad people in the gaming community, but then rebranded as like a progressive political candidate and stuff like that. Kind of pivoted niche online notoriety into a sort of political career in a similar way to the way in which the Krassenstein bros have also done that. And, I think it's been weird, especially recently. Let's see. Awesome. Just adding one thing to the little title. But there's been this, and we talked about this in a lot of different ways. But there's been a big push, a big tendency, big growth towards a type of grifting in which someone creates like an online persona. There's a lot of people, right? They create their weird online persona that has nothing to do with politics or nothing to do with a serious analysis of society, and then they somehow pivot that into a political platform. And then they say stuff and act like they are a political theorist or critic or whatever, but they've done nothing. They've said nothing. Now it's a weird space here, right? Because I think, I was thinking about this in the context of some stuff I saw online last week. I was talking about kind of debate and intellectual culture and critical theory. And there's a part of me that thinks that we do a weird thing sometimes. And this is, I'm going to say something vague and I think it'll lead us somewhere. But let me know what you think about this idea. That if I said to you, I have no formal training in engineering, but I read some academic engineering books, and let me tell you why they're stupid. Or I'm gonna sort of own the mechanical engineering space. You probably wouldn't take me very seriously. If I'd never really cooked before in a professional kitchen, and I went to an upscale French restaurant and I was like, idiots, you don't even know what you're doing. You're logically incoherent. I'm going to own you as I sous vide this filet or whatever it might be. What's up, Allie? And I think this is happening more and more in the realm of like philosophy and political theory, where people think that because they like exist in society and have feelings and opinions about things, that they sort of, I want to phrase this carefully because what I don't want to say, and it's a weird balance here, What I'm not saying is you don't get to like read philosophy and theory books if you didn't go to grad school. I'm definitely not saying that. What I am saying is you kind of got to do some of the work before you can make some of these grand claims, and that there is a deceptive simplicity about issues of politics and ethics and theory that lead to a lot of conversations being very dumb. Does that make sense? Are you kind of getting what I'm saying here, Henry?
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about with Umberto Eco, because a lot of the like older novels that I'm a big fan of, like The Count of Monte Cristo, Don Quixote, they have forewords in them by these public intellectuals from like the mid-century, like Harold Bloom, Umberto Eco, and it makes me think about like prior iterations of the public intellectual in the past, and how they had like, yeah, they may have had academic standing, or they may have been known like for really good interpretive work on a book or something. There was something kind of interdisciplinary about them, whereas like I feel there's a lot more like kind of like made for the media by the media, sort of more floaty political ideologues now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and I think that kind of like leads into this. And someone in the chat is even talking about this has crept into science a little bit. So I'm just kind of saying that as a way to get us started as we watch some of this. Let me see. I'm going to get it. Playback speed. Let's do a solid 125. Great. So we'll start. Great. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I have some notes here. And for context, Brianna Wu, again, made kind of famous through Gamergate, in which she very legitimately was treated in very shitty ways. And we do not want to act. We're not going to do the game where we're like, because you are dumb now, the bad thing that happened to you doesn't matter. It did matter. It was shitty. Since rebranded herself as a progressive activist, which also the words we use, like progressive activist, what does that mean? And has since turned against the left, largely in the wake of October 7th. And she's on the podcast Trigonometry. Get it? Let's watch some.
Fact that the progressive fringe is now standing with the literal fucking terrorists? Like, what the hell are we thinking? Look at what we're doing with the trans children debate. What is the progressive left's answer to any parent that has a question on any of that? It is shut the fuck up. We've got to move back to science and back to reality. People perceive progressives as assholes. A decade ago during Gamergate, people thought the white male gamers were the assholes. I've got news for you. Today, it's trans Twitter, it's socialist Twitter, it's terrorist sympathizer Twitter, it's us.
Brianna, well, welcome to Trigonometry. We've been working on this interview. We've got a bunch of questions to ask you, but first of all, lots of people told you not to come on the show.
Oh my God, I announced this, what was it, 2 days ago? And my DMs have been nothing but people calling you transphobes and Nazis and racists.
I guess she like laughs about it. I don't know. You know, I just feel like sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. I'll leave it at that for now.
And I'm always like, can you show me a clip of what they've said to like make you feel that way? It's always the most silly thing. It is, I don't know. It's like
just
no
me
one
doing a Hitler salute.
Yes, exactly that.
Silly
Yeah,
stuff
the
like that.
KKK costume I think was a little much.
It was a nice
maybe.
party. What can you say?
They laughed about how he did a Hitler salute and wore a KKK costume at a party. Just saying.
But anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm
it's
really
great to
honored.
have you. I've been following a lot of
Like the stream if you've never worn a KKK costume at a party.
the things you've been saying recently, and it was very interesting for us to get you on the show to talk about them, because I don't know if you saw, I wrote an article very shortly after October 7th for the Free Press called The Day the Delusions Died.
Wow.
And my argument was that I thought that it was no longer possible for a lot of good people on the left to pretend that the extremes of the left were not going off the rails.
Yeah.
And you are someone who's outright progressive,
Yep.
Democrat progressive,
Yep.
raising money.
I mean, so let's just start with this. Some definitions of terms, right? We can't, there's just been like a really sloppy use of language, like when we say left, right? Historically, a leftist position is a position that stands for principles of fundamental egalitarianism. It is usually an anti-capitalist position, inherently anti-capitalist, is normally for a type of absolute democracy, and is normally something that stands against dominant systems of power that value forms of exploitation. That is very different from being a Western liberal Democrat that believes in the power of the market to create equitable positions in society, and who thinks that like public and private interest can work together and that the government should give subsidies to Exxon. They're just different things right off the bat. Very, very different things. This is also why when like when the gentleman who's talking right now talks about, you know, the left jumping the shark after October 7th or whatever. I mean, I think the reason why a lot of people struggled in the wake of that series of events is that there were people that I think do identify as left and have a leftist position that would say something like this. And this isn't like me talking. This is me representing a type of argument. An argument that would be something like, hey, what happened on October 7th is bad and horrible, and innocent people in no circumstance deserve to be murdered, kidnapped, whatever. I still have yet to hear any friends or colleagues who are like leftists say that. But people who did say, however, we cannot understand this event as isolated from the political conditions, at least since 1948, that led to this. We cannot understand this event without looking at the, you know, colonial, in some case, apartheid conditions that have fomented a certain type of movement. We cannot consider this without looking at the fact that someone like Benjamin Netanyahu has talked about the importance of making sure Hamas sticks around, right? So I think that would be like a sort of leftist type of analysis, and the liberal brain in this context just hears, so you think terrorism's good? Which is like in the little opening clip they showed Wu basically saying like, now leftists are terrorists. And that's this sort of like weird online debate brain that wants to jump towards making the most hyperbolic connection rather than stopping and thinking analytically about the conditions that led to the things. And if there's anything that's like, you know, that I do think I would associate with a type of like leftist critique, if we can use that term, would be something like taking seriously economic, material, and social conditions and never taking an event to be just what it is, disconnected from those conditions. So, but we'll keep going. If you're just tuning in, we're watching a little bit of this Brianna Wu interview from the Trigonometry podcast. Every time I say the name of that podcast, my soul dies a little bit more.
To fight Trump and all
My
the rest
literal job is to get Democrats elected.
Right.
Like, I'm on the
Classic
team.
leftist
Yes,
job.
you're on the team, and I see you now being one of the very few people who's willing to stand up against the anti-Semitic extremes on your own side. Not just anti-Semitic, but there's also large elements of anti-whiteness and all sorts of other stuff.
Okay. Anti-Semitism, real thing. I think that many instances of anti-Semitism that are talked about these days by people like this are like people saying from the river to the sea, which is not good, fair, accurate. Anti-whiteness. As soon as I hear you say like anti-whiteness is a political problem, I pretty much tune out. I don't know. Henry, push back on me here. Is there any like valid way to bring up anti-whiteness as a real political or social problem?
No, I don't. No. Like, no, I don't.
If anyone has
a
a subtle take on this in the chat, I would love to hear it.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Well,
like,
keep
we're
going.
in agreement
you
that
suddenly
it's a
taken this
constructed
position?
identity.
Oh, sorry.
I would just say, like, we're in agreement that it's a constructed identity used to consolidate, like, European, like, Western, you know, racism in American power dynamics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Guys, on Juneteenth, we're not out here sticking up for white rights. We're just not. We're not doing it on Juneteenth, okay?
The better question is, where the hell is everyone else? This is the most obvious moral position in the entire.
So I love this. Someone who identifies himself as being super left gets critiqued for their positions and then says, everyone else is dumb. I have the most obvious moral position in the world. A, not a good rhetorical strategy. B, like, oh, I don't know about that. That's not a good way to like stand in your own corner.
Role to take, you know, like Hamas, these are not good people. Hezbollah, you know, the Houthis, these are not good people. So the fact that the progressive
They cannot show us examples of any mainstream or prominent figure on the left saying that like Hezbollah rips.
Fringe is now standing with the literal fucking terrorists. Like, what the hell are we thinking? This is not very difficult. So for me, it's really been a realization, because there have been so many things over the last decade that I've just shut my mouth about and I've gone along with. And it's really at a point now where it's gut check time. This is principles time. Whose team are you on? Are you on team democracy, or are you on team burn everything down?
Again, I don't know if that's a fair way to put the stakes, but also, and the sort of meta reason this is interesting, because like, again, there is a trend of people who build a digital brand around how progressive they are, and as soon as they get pushback on saying dumb shit, they run to the right. They run to the sort of like fringe right where they can say things like they really are.
It's been really disillusioning to see just how few people on my own side have principles. I always thought that what we were doing was about making the world better, and it's been very eye-opening to see it's actually about personal power.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question
The personal power thing, interesting.
that will sort of
I'd love to hear examples. We'll walk
sound a
through.
little bit like an "I told you so" or anything, but it's not intended in that
Sure.
way. I guess a lot of people who are in our position, Francis and I both always thought of ourselves as liberal and on the left, and we worked in a very progressive comedy industry in the UK. And what happened with us is we said what you're saying now
Right.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
And we became, Nazi terror.
And to be
far right.
fair, I was part of the crowd that was shouting you down and calling you those names.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, well, you weren't
Yeah.
shouting me down personally, but
I'm talking about people
yeah,
like you saying that stuff.
right. So I guess
The guy on the right strikes me as really funny. He hasn't spoken yet. He just has a funny vibe.
I'm curious what you think is going to happen, first of all, with you now, because it's sort of the way it has happened today is
Here's the thing too. Who canceled her? If she works for the Democratic Party and fundraises for the party, I think she's fine. You know what I mean? Maybe like the host of Chapo Trap House don't like her. But I don't know if that means you're canceled. I think you'll be fine if your main gist is like trying to get, down ballot Democrats elected.
anyone who was able into that fringe that you're talking about, which is anti-Western, it's anti-male, it's anti-white, it's
That's right.
anti-Jewish, etc., would say what you're saying, what we've been saying for years, and they would immediately become evil.
Oh, sorry, guys. Chris Mavericks here, so we're going to start the whole show over. Welcome, guys. It's a Wisecrack Live. It's Wednesday, June 19th. Happy Juneteenth. Oh, we're here. I'm kidding. But if there's anyone we do that for, it'd be Chris Maverick.
Right-wing.
And if you're just tuning in, we're going to watch a little bit of this Brianna Wu thing. I know a lot of people have already responded to this, so we're going to see if we can use this to get into some conversational stuff. And then, guys, in hour 2, Jordan Peterson is talking about Marx again. And you know that your boy has to do it. I can't not. Someone said, Havboard, have you ever watched these guys outside of this? I've watched clips. I've never watched an entire episode. And I've scrolled through like the sort of stuff they do. And I know in general, their whole vibe is like, ex-feminist now it's like the whole vibe is like sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, that friggin' like, someone used to be woke and progressive, but then they realize that actually that's bad, and now they're speaking their truth. Everyone always said, and someone said this in the chat, and I don't think this is an unfair thing to say, I guess, but everyone's always like, why don't you talk to these people? Guys, I can't just like call people and be like, hey, I'm going to come on your show and talk. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, and I'll be honest, these people don't want to talk to me. No one's reaching out to me. You know what I mean? Let's see. So Solar, how is this dehumanizing? Hey Solar, I take that very seriously. I'm truly not trying to dehumanize anyone, and I feel really bad if you think that is what I'm trying to do. And Solrak, I would talk to lots of people. I do not want to talk to people who want to like debate and fight and all that sort of stuff. I'm just not interested in it. And also too, like, I don't think we have to talk to everyone. You know what I mean? There's like a weird tendency now where we just have to like talk to everyone we disagree with. I don't know. I think that's okay to not talk to everyone. But hey, if I dehumanize anyone on the stream, call me out because that's fair.
Nazi far right. And that's kind of
and natural phenomenon. I didn't see your original comment. I might go back. I didn't see what you said, but if it's about young men being left behind, I've said this before, and I do think that there's a huge problem in our culture with some of what you're describing, and I think in particular people on the far right have been way better at like attracting young men and taking advantage of their alienation and vulnerability.
And a bit, and no one stand up and say anything.
That's right.
As has happened. So what are you expecting to happen?
Well, I've lost more friends than I can count, right? So I'm very much trying to make new friends. I think the long-term path of this is progressivism and socialism in the United States is a cultural dead end. This is not
So socialism is a cultural dead end.
going to go where there's
But I
no
wonder what that means too. Is socialism a political dead end, or is it just a cultural dead end? And then I would ask this person, like, have you participated in any socialist politics, or are you talking about Twitter accounts? And I do think that's an important distinction. I'm not saying that. Also, someone said, for the chat, I hope you know as well, it's very hard, even if I'm just jacked up on Ritalin-based prescriptions, to do this and see the chat at all times. So I'm not always going to see everything you say. If there's something you want to get to and it's important, and I mean this very genuinely, I don't want to say like, oh, you super chat it. No, we don't need your money. It's fine. Email us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Genuinely. Henry will toss the email in the chat. Totally happy. If you guys have a problem with the way we're engaging or you think there's something we need to talk about, please, 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 please just shoot us a quick email, okay? So would love to talk about it. I'm not always going to catch everything in the chat.
There's no universe where like progressives win power and manage to get a ton of congressional seats and pass the legislation that I believe in. It has devolved into, exactly as you say, a bunch of culture war nonsense that is not about policy and now literally siding with terrorists. So what I've had so many
I do think a lot of this too is just without examples, which is the other thing.
Conversations with friends about this because every single progressive activist that I know is really frustrated with this destructive tendency that we have.
I say stuff like this too. So, I'll be self-critical, but whenever we say every single person I know, it's like, I don't know, that's not a good argument.
And all of us are going, what can we do? Your industry has audience capture where you kind of get into a lane and you can't challenge your own audience because your numbers will drop. I think in the progressive space, there's very much the same thing where there's this tendency to go lefter and lefter and lefter and lefter. And now we're at a point where we can't even say things like trans women don't have periods without people getting really upset about that. Look at my mentions literally right now. So someone's got to stand up and go.
But then it's like, why do you need to say that?
Yeah. How often? In
Not
your
even getting to the
day-to-day-
debate. Like, why do you need to say that? Like,
Michael-
what's the?
Michael, how often in your day-to-day have you had to hold yourself back and been like, yikes, I would have been outed as a transphobe if I had just damn, things are getting tough around here. Do you have to hold face often?
No, I just be like a cool person, guys. Like, just be cool. It's fine. Like, if you're just cool, you know what's not cool? Having to be like, well, technically a trans woman don't you? It's like, what? But why? Who cares? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is the point here? I did see someone in the chat say something about philosophy books for beginners. Kierkegaard's The Present Age, Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morality, Alain Badiou's Ethics, Kant's The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, and maybe Plato's. Maybe start with the Apology. And then slowly start reading the Republic. Okay, back into it.
This is not crazy town. I didn't get into progressive politics to talk about trans women having periods. I got into progressive politics to pass fucking healthcare. So we're either serious.
Did you pass it?
Why aren't you talking about healthcare then?
Serious about course correcting on this cultural dead end.
Like if you also, this is someone I just want to note too. So someone talks about dehumanizing. This person yesterday, the day before, Brianna Wu on Twitter made fun of Matt Chrisman, one of the hosts of Chapo Trap House, for having an aneurysm and almost dying. And this happened while his wife was giving birth to their child. She made fun of him for that and implied that it happened because he was a cokehead. No evidence for that. And then Matt Chrisman's wife had to, who's a comedian named Amber Rollo, had to go on Twitter today or yesterday and defend her husband and the father of her child by being like, hey, he actually didn't have an aneurysm because he's a cokehead. He had a heart condition from birth that led to this thing. So this is also the issue, right? And this is someone who presents like this, and then they get behind the keyboard and they're making fun of people for almost dying. It's not good. I just don't trust that at all. Say what you will about me, but I'm never getting on Twitter and being like, ha, glad you had an aneurysm. That's just psychotic.
Or Donald Trump and MAGA are going to win everything. And the pain for the Democratic Party is going to be extreme. We've got to start talking more to people in the middle, and we need to be reaching out to sane Republicans, in my view.
Brianna, don't you think part of the problem is
This guy finally tapped
when
in.
it comes, look, and both sides suffer with this, but I think the left suffer with this more. It's this purity ritual that you have. You are not left unless you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, da, 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 da. And all of a sudden, the moment you challenge one of those tenets, you're out.
That's exactly right. I mean,
I don't know. I do think there's like, I'm curious, if people have had experiences with this. I feel like there's a good amount of diversity inside those walls. I think the issue, of course, right, is like, we talked about this. If you are going to say you are on the left, you at least have to be, anti-capitalist. If you're not anti-capitalist, then it just doesn't make sense. Anti-colonial. There's certain principles. You can't just say like, I am a thing because. You can't just say like, show up at the club and be like, yeah, I'm a jazz pianist. Do you know scales? I do not. Have you played a piano? I have not, but I'm a jazz pianist. There's certain sort of principles and things you got to have to kind of get in the door.
mentioned, she can see this firsthand. It's not enough to, like, I am as progressive as
We are watching at faster speed just to get through
she
something.
can get. Universal health care. I want structural solutions to heal this gaping wound of racism that's existed in our country since slavery. Name a progressive policy. I'm very much in favor of it. But when it comes to the optics, right, we've got to start having more serious conversations about how people perceive us. People perceive progressives as assholes.
Do you think that's true, Henry? Do you think people perceive progressives as assholes?
No. I think there's like a liberal, smug kind of American cliche, but I don't know about asshole. Because like, are they assholes or are they?
Isn't it just that some people are assholes?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was a little sideswiped by the question too. I'm just kind of keeping hawkish on chat right now.
No worries. You keep hawkish on chat. We'll go back
That's
to
just
this.
the truth. Ago during Gamergate, people thought the white male gamers were the assholes. I've got news for you. Today, it's trans Twitter, it's socialist Twitter, it's terrorist sympathizer Twitter. It's us. We're the ones doxing people. We're the ones sending death threats. We're canceling everyone in sight. And at the end of the day, people are not going to trust assholes with power. I'm sorry. It's just the truth.
And you said at the start of this conversation something that I found very interesting. You basically said that you had reservations about things that had happened before October 7th. What were those things that you shut your mouth over? And the second part of that question is, do you regret it now, seeing what it's become?
I definitely do. So let me give you a really specific example. When I was running for Congress in 2018,
did not win.
you had the Women's March, and you had elements of the Women's March that were out there with this pro-Palestine, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic nonsense.
Okay. So, a few things. She went from pro-Palestine to anti-Semitic to anti-Jewish. Now, maybe there was elements of the Women's March that were anti-Semitic. If anyone has seen that, let me know. But she's doing this little trick where it's like to be pro-Palestine, to call for a free Gaza, somehow inherently connects anti-Semitism, which is just a false argument with many, many flaws in it. But you see how she does it like real quick? So she just makes this quick connection to be like, now I can say this thing.
Israel and veering into the most anti-Semitic language that you could possibly have.
I want to just gesture. I do not think the Women's March was using the most anti-Semitic language you could possibly have. I think the Nazis were doing that. You know what else happened around the time right after the Women's March where there was some Nazi language? It was when those Nazis marched, and the Nazis marched in Charlottesville, and they killed someone. And it's very insane to have to listen to people like this talk about how women marching in solidarity with women in Palestine are somehow the real Nazis.
That was wrong. I made the decision to keep my mouth shut, which was a tremendous error in judgment. And because people like me shut up in those years, it kept getting worse. And those seeds.
Guys, I get, I'm going 1.5. You know what? I'm gonna compromise because I'm a politician and I believe in compromise. I'm going 1.25 now.
Growing, and now it's basically taken over the entire progressive movement. I don't know if it can be saved in time. And you can go into any number of issues like self-ID with trans people, or I remember during Gamergate, there was this expansionist thing that it wasn't enough to talk about the number of women we were hiring in the game industry. Now we had to obliterate whiteness as something that we were featuring in games. And I'm like,
that felt weird.
It's a little bit extreme, but we'll go along with it. So it was just one more step after another. And now it's 10 years later. Look at where we are. We are completely unelectable. This strategy is failing.
I suppose the question that I'm curious about, and I hear people on left and right.
Oh wait, did
saying
we
this
miss a
often, and
666? Oh, we did. Guys, on this day of all days, we will say 666. We're going to talk about if Marx was a Satanist later, so get ready. A reminder, hit up Wisecrack Lies 666. Wisecrack, I almost said Wisecrack Lies 666. If anyone wants to go anti this show and start counter programming, call it Wisecrack Lies and then have a separate show about how we're like liars and stuff. But shouts out to that. We like to get to 666. It's fun. Email us if you want. Shouts to our friends at Yes Please Coffee. We love coffee. Coffee is Satan. We'll get back to this. But later, guys, in hour 2, we're literally going to talk about how Jordan Peterson and a scholar said that Marx, I'm going to give you some previews. They say that Marx is a Satanist, and they say that we shouldn't take Marx seriously because he was dirty. That's what they say. It's a real thing.
Like in the just tangibly, like he just had dirt, like just a filthy.
Like literally, like he didn't bathe well, and that's why his thought is bad. I swear to God, it's a thing they say.
He did
don't
not
understand
make the bed.
So, and you did say it, so I'm curious to explore this. You called the culture war nonsense.
It is.
Well, you say it is. And I suppose it depends. What exactly do you mean by that, first of all, before I jump in with my
So
opinion?
we have different jobs, right? You are a public advocate and a public figure, and you have a very specific agenda that is pro-free speech.
Thank God you didn't say public intellectual.
One I agree with. But my job is different. My job is public policy. My job is to get candidates elected, and my job is to backchannel specific bills to get them passed.
Right.
So in my view,
Probably be better at that job if you weren't just online making fun of people for having fucking aneurysms.
as soon as you get something like family medical leave and you turn it into a right versus left culture war, you have automatically lost the conversation.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you about it. I guess the reason I ask you, Bran, is that the way I see what's going on, and I'll lay it out for you the way that I see it, and you feel free to pick away at it, challenge, whatever, is here's my conception of the culture war as it happens. I feel that there is a determined, organized attempt to undermine the basic building blocks of our civilization.
Yes.
And those of us who are willing to A, see that, and B, say something about it, are called culture warriors. That's what people say about me, for example. Oh, he's just a culture warrior. And my view is, our culture is really important. Our culture is why we are where we are. Our culture is why we're successful. Our culture is why our civilization is rich and powerful.
But like, what is our culture? You know, whenever it's like a white guy from the West that's like our culture, I'm like, okay. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we don't have time to get into all of this. I'm going to skip to the chapter that's titled, "We wrote off half the country as racist." And this is going to skip over the part where she talks about Steve Bannon. Oh, we got to watch their Shopify thing first.
.co.uk/trigger. And now, back to the interview.
We learned.
Like, I know that I cannot make fun of the fact that it's pretty funny to go from this to like ads, but his eyes seemed enthusiastic. At least my eyes would. If I had to do a Shopify ad in the middle of something like this, I would be like, "Hey guys, have you ever heard about Shopify?" You know, but do what you gotta do.
All the wrong lessons from the Trump years, right? The correct lesson that the left should have learned from Donald Trump was normal Americans that don't follow politics as closely as people like I do, you know, have 5 newspaper subscriptions, look at the polls every day, talk.
Normal Americans have 5 newspaper. Oh no, she says that's her. Never mind.
Donors, all that kind of stuff. Normal people don't think the system is working for them, and they want to break it. If you really want to get down to it, and
okay, so the mistake she thinks people on the left made is that normal people think the system isn't working and they want to break it. That's what normal people think. So she's about to say the left didn't respond to that. I don't know if any of you saw this, but definitely at least it's not Vanderhelp. Sorry, Dennis, it's not BetterHelp. I called it Vanderhelp when I saw your name there. But there was someone else that ran for president in 2020. His name was Bernard Sanders. And literally his entire message, and it was a message that was supported pretty aggressively by lots of people on the left, was exactly what she said. Bernard Sanders' entire message was, shit is broken for the middle class and working class, and we need to do something different. There's the entire message. You know, I know that I'm not a political guy. I've never voted, but I did canvass and work for the Sanders campaign a bit. And it was a campaign that a lot of people from all over the left liberal spectrum, including, I'm going to name drop, very fun people like fucking Eric Andre was out there in the streets knocking on doors for Bernie with us. But that's like literally what that campaign was about. And I think you could probably say that the Sanders campaign was the largest coalesced like leftist political movement, at least of my lifetime in America. So I want to see what she says after that. But I saw the super chat. I'm going to get to it in a second.
Instead, we took this really comforting lie that half the country was lost and not worth talking to, and they were all racists, and they were.
But no one says that. You know what I mean? It's like, this is why I like citing sources sometimes. I've just never heard someone be like, half the country is racist. If anything, I know a lot of folks on the left, and this is something even like Sanders said, and some people that are adjacent to Sanders said, like, it's not that half people in the country are racist, it's that people are economically alienated, and that like the white working class, the issue is less racism, but more economic stuff. But yeah. Blue Hornet said, I'm late to the stream, but I think a major reason for the current leaving the left is the election year. Different political grifters want to be able to market to whoever wins the election. Absolutely. And this happens every election. Every election, we see people do this sort of thing. I can't wait to see what our turn is this election.
Disposable, stopped even imagining a way to live with one another. There's no future for the Democratic Party where we don't get goddamn serious about listening to the people that don't have faith in the system and earning their trust. And so much of that starts with the conversation, and we are failing.